Welcome in, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. It is game day for the Alabama Crimson Tide in the college football playoff. We will give you every single angle of it, break it down as many ways as humanly possible. That's not the only game today, by the way. It starts at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. today. We get college football. Kennesaw State at 10-3, taking on Western Michigan at 9-4 in the Myrtle Beach Bowl from the Dirty Murdy. That's on ESPN, and then at 1:30 on ESPN, Memphis at NC State in the Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl. That'll be coming your way today, this afternoon. So 3 bowl games today. I guess technically, do we call a regular playoff game a bowl game? The college football playoff first round between Alabama and Oklahoma tonight at 7 on ESPN and ABC. Rematch from a couple of weeks ago where Oklahoma was able to sneak out the win in Tuscaloosa. Now they get this game at home, which when you look at the weather, 53 degrees, it'll be chilly, but the wind is what a lot of folks are beginning to talk about here in Norman and how problematic that could be. That becomes very interesting to me because when Greg does finally join the show, he'll have get up throughout the course of the show today. He's got multiple hits, so he'll be on for a few minutes at some point. He'll always tell you that quarterbacks don't worry about rain, don't worry about cold, worry about wind when it's going to affect being able to pass the football. So if that's the case, if that's what we're staring down the barrel of, you have two offenses that struggle to run the ball. You have two offenses that just have not been great here down the stretch anyway. And now, if the weather, the elements, the wind is going to slow down the passing game, what's that going to look like? I think we're in store for a complete and utter rock fight tonight. I don't think there will be a lot of yards for either team. I don't think there'll be a lot of points for either team. 40.5 is low. I would still take the under in this game. You look at Alabama's health. That's a big question mark at a lot of different places. Parker Brailsford, Jeremy Bernard, Ty Simpson, Cuevas potentially coming back. What's he going to look like? How effective can he be? Watching the game from earlier this season, again last night, Cuevas big. Obviously had the touchdown reception with a little misdirection, kind of had that angle route across the middle of the field. They hit him and he scores, but just the blocking that he adds both in the run game, in the pass game, and what he is and how he makes it different. I think something to watch for Alabama. Oklahoma probably as healthy as they have been going to get on offense, which is going to be an advantage for them, not having played in the SEC championship game and having a little bit of extra time to get healthy. R. Mason Thomas off the edge, another one to watch to see just how that one's going to look and what he's going to be like, how effective he can be off the edge. Had the scoop and score against Tennessee earlier this season, just adds even more. I think he has a little bit more bulk and girth off the edge compared to some of the other guys that they have. But this defense is one that's tough to manage. And I think the most important facet of this game, when we're looking at it, talking about, okay, what's going to happen if it's not one of our normal list of characters that we're talking about, John Mateer, Ty Simpson, Isaiah Satanga, maybe even a Deion Burks. Like, who's the next guy who steps up? Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard. I think you go to Parker Brailsford. Just because of this front seven, how tough it is to manage. This front seven, how much they're going to move, how many different looks they're going to give you. First and foremost, the football IQ to be able to have in the middle of your offense. And it's one thing that Alabama has done a lot of this year. Some people beginning to kind of complain about this just a little bit, saying they do too much at the line of scrimmage. But Parker Brailsford's somebody that helps them be right, get into the right things. And I'll say this, Alabama missed on protection multiple times the last time around. They had side protection going one way. I don't know if this coaching staff had a beat on what the protection was going to be or where it was going to be set, but they bring pressure opposite. They create that space like you guys have heard me talk about so many times where we're going to get you sliding one way, we're going to hold up the backside guard or tackle, and the sea will part, and we're going to be able to have a free run at your quarterback. I think Kip Lewis alone had probably 4 free runs at Ty Simpson last time around when these two teams played. And if you're able to do something similar, it's not going to be easy for Alabama to be able to get that offense going. One thing that I did pick up from watching this again last night was Alabama's gap scheme runs. Some trap plays, some counter power plays to the perimeter that did have some success. And I'm wondering, is there a little bit more of a sustained success that could come from those plays in this matchup? Now, do I think that they're just going to live there and run 30 times for 185 yards? No, I don't. But there was a little bit of a pick and choose nature of how they ran those plays last time, and a couple of them went for decent yards. And if you can set those up a little bit better in a game like this, have a better understanding of how you're going to be played, what they're going to try to do, how they're going to operate, then maybe that's something that could help the Alabama offense a little bit. The reality of this is turnovers are going to be massive for both teams, as big as they're going to be in a game that we talk about, just because of the way the quarterbacks have played this year and then the way the quarterbacks have played here as of late. Those have been almost totally different night and day. And then the other side of that is your possessions are going to be limited. So if you're only going to have 60, 70% of your normal possessions, I don't think that turnovers are minimized at all. I think they're maximized. We did a live show with Gabe Eichert and Teddy Lehman last night. Teddy Lehman going to join the show at 8:30 this morning. Stanford Steve at 9. Katie Harper covers JMU. She's at 8 this morning. And Gabe asked Josh Payton and I, we were on the panel with him at this time. He said, do you want to try to go fast? Does either team want to use tempo here? My response was, from an Alabama perspective, no, because most of your guys that are dinged up and beat up, you don't want to give them extra snaps. You don't want to force them into different things. On the flip side of that, I don't think Oklahoma wants to speed the game up. I think Oklahoma knows what this game's going to be. They got it at home. They probably have the special teams advantage, and they might not have an advantage on offense, but they realize where their strengths are, what this game's going to be, the style fight that they want. So I don't see either team speeding this thing up. Greg, do you see either Oklahoma or Alabama trying to go tempo, trying to go fast at all in this game?
It's one thing I've gone back and forth on, buddy. Like, I don't think it would be a disadvantage to Alabama to use some tempo, to just allow the guys to play free. Like, I feel like there's been a certain hesitation, a little tentative, whatever it may be, in the first, the last month of the season. Does it not feel like this team has kind of been playing not to lose? That's the way it's felt. Now I think you're in, the pressure's off, you're playing with house money, go and make it happen. And I think tempo can be advantageous. I feel like there's been a little paralysis by analysis. So while I wouldn't live in tempo because I don't want to hang my defense out to dry, I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world to utilize it there. I don't know, first drive, second drive, just to kind of work out the cobwebs and see if you could jumpstart the engine.
Yeah, and I do get some of that. I understand it. The other side of that, I think, is kind of as you joined us, heard me saying, if Jeremy Bernard's not 100%, if Brailsford's not 100%, Cuevas won't be 100%, Ty Simpson might not be 100%, do I want to throw extra reps on him?
Yeah.
And I would say that the obvious answer there is no. Now, to your point, if that's something that can sort of minimize what that defense is giving you from a look perspective, because maybe that is one thing that I thought of a little bit going back and watching that game again last night is how long. I mean, I'm sitting there pushing fast forward to get to the snap, and I'm holding fast forward down for 5 or 6 seconds to get to every snap. So that's how much work Ty Simpson, Parker Brailsford doing at the line of scrimmage. Well, that only allows the defense to move, be in a different look, walk somebody up, maybe show you something that they weren't going to give you that forced you to change your play. And then now they're back into something that you want them to be in because you're forcing their hand with something that you thought a coverage was going to be and it wasn't going to be. So that sort of chess match, cat and mouse game is going to be interesting. I'm also interested to see, Greg, how Kane Womack calls this game.
Yeah.
Because I think he may have to dictate certain things. And oftentimes defense coordinators don't operate that way. I think his approach will be a little bit more wait and see. I don't think he has the freedom to go into this game plan and say, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to be. I think if the offense is struggling, he may have to become hyper-aggressive. Now, we know what Oklahoma's is going to be. I mean, they've been the exact same thing every week except for the Texas game. That's it. I mean, they're not going to change their operation. They're not going to change who they are, what they do. But I do think it's going to be interesting to watch Alabama's plan on defense because the flow of the game could dictate that really be one thing or the other depending on how it goes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I also think that it's going to be very difficult to go into this game being super aggressive defensively because of how Oklahoma's thrived this year. Oklahoma is not an offense that's going to consider, or at least they haven't been. Maybe they'll be in this game. Who knows? Maybe they find a next gear that we haven't seen all year. I mean, that's 100% possible, and I wouldn't say probable, but possible for sure. So when you look at Oklahoma, how confident are you, Cole, in them being able to manufacture 12 to 15 play drives for touchdowns.
12 to 15. I mean, I'll make a life bet that Oklahoma doesn't have a 15 play drive in this game. That ain't happening. Like,
so what does a life bet look like? Like we get to
I'll bet my life versus yours. I mean, it's not
no,
it's
I'm
not
not
happening.
mine.
Like the ultimate bet. Nobody's doing that really. But I'm just saying, like that would be the lock of the decade. It's literally not going to happen.
100%. That like they are a big play. You know what Oklahoma's offense is? They're Alabama's offense from 2023, except they're not as explosive. Like that's kind of what they are. They are exclusively big play reliant. Like they rely on a busted coverage. They rely on a long catch and run. They rely on a misfit in the run game. And then all of a sudden, you have an 87-yard touchdown. You have a guy on a scramble drill that breaks free and Satania's open. He's behind the defense. 73-yard touchdown. You have Xavier Robinson against Ole Miss. You know, he breaks to the outside, the safety misfits, and he's out the gate for 60 on the ground. It's like they are against Alabama. The sack fumble, all of a sudden Mateer goes for 35 in a run game, missing a couple tackles and stuff like that to the end zone. Like they are kind of a big play offense, which is really, really hard to sustain. They're not a team that has done a great job of sustaining, but they have done a great job of manufacturing that big play. So I think if you're Kane Womack, you probably are thinking about it saying, hey, man, let's just make them play offense. Like I just need to keep the ball in front of me. I can live with the paper cuts that they're going to apply because eventually I'm going to knock them out with a missed block up front or I'm going to get hands on the ball on 1st and 10 and they haven't really been a team that's been great throwing it down the field. So I think that it's kind of one of those where you want to keep it in front of you, don't give up the big play, and you should probably be in a pretty good spot.
And that's one of the reasons I think that how Kane Womack calls this game is interesting. You go back to the LSU game, I think he called drop 8 over 30 times. Also, the most movement up front that we've seen. This defensive line has become much more active over the course of the last 2-3 weeks of the regular season. Do you need that if that offense is not getting things going? If they are sort of dinking and dunking you, and maybe Kane Womack sits back again, Greg, and says, you can have the quick throws. I'll give you the tunnel screen. You know, you can have the quick out. You can have the hitch. We don't think you can complete them the whole way down, or we think you're going to get greedy at some point and try to take something else. So I think that's feasible, possible, and I think if Oklahoma does try to take something else, does try to do something a little bit different to create those explosives, you could potentially be looking at, okay, now you're in trouble because of how Kane Womack's able to play you. That's where that vision coverage really comes to be a big benefit. So I just look at these two offenses right now, and I give Alabama a little bit of an edge of the different directions they can go. Like there are more routes on their GPS offensively. Where does Oklahoma even go? I mean, unless you want to try to live and die on a little more quarterback run and become more heavy with that and more reliant on that, I just don't see this group as having a different sort of foundational piece to who they can be. They are what they are, and that's just going to be it. That's it. That's all. So that's what I'm interested to see is kind of where Oklahoma goes with this, how they try to operate with it, and then how Alabama's defense calls it. Because if Oklahoma does get something going, or even if, Greg, Oklahoma gets a special team score, defensive score, and they're up 2 touchdowns, middle of the second quarter, does Kane have to get more aggressive? Does he have to go out and start trying to win field position for the offense, things of that nature? That's kind of stylistically what I'm anxious to see in this game.
I think 100%. And the one thing I would say about that, look, the level of aggressiveness is 100% dependent on what the game looks like. I mean, but I don't think you start aggressive. I think you work yourself into it. And you can be aggressive along the defensive line with movement and games and twists and stunts and all this other stuff. Oklahoma, do we have an update yet about Michaela, the center? Is he a go? He was questionable as of yesterday. I have not seen any upgrade to his status, but that could help for Alabama up front.
My understanding is he'll be available.
Okay, so he should be up. Derek Simmons, the right tackle, will be up, which means they're a little more experienced along the front. You still have 2 freshmen and Pierre Louis at left guard. You still have Fasusi, the freshman at left tackle. So they might have a couple things. I like Pierre Louis, though. I think he's a good player and will be great in time. But looking at everything, I think you have to decide when evaluating this entire thing, you have to decide, are we better off trying to dictate terms or allowing the game to come to us? I happen to think you're better off in this game allowing, I'm talking strictly from Kane Womack's vantage point, letting the game come to us. Frankly, I think the offense is going to have a good day today. I think the return of Jam Miller and Josh Cuevas cannot be overemphasized. That is enormous. I think Ryan Williams looking as good in the Georgia game as he has all year is significant. I also think that there's something about seeing the storm, and they've seen the storm. They've seen this Oklahoma group before, and they are a beast now. They are great on defense. I think the offense could be in position to have one of their better days of the year because, frankly, if you remove 2 plays from that first matchup, it was one of their best games of the season. All things considered, it really was. But, hey, 2 plays, 2 catastrophics, can't happen, right? So I think the offense is going to play well. I think the defense knows that, and I think the defense will probably allow the game to come to them. Now, if the offense looks like they did against Georgia, expect Cam Wanna to turn out the heat. That's where I think it could come. Because even if you look at the game that I'm amazed at how people are looking at Alabama based on their last performance, and they're not applying the same logic to Oklahoma based on their last performance. Cole, you watched it. How would you assess, and we barely talked about it, how would you assess Oklahoma's performance against LSU?
It was confusing and not great. Because it was one that
awful.
if you look at the box score, you'd say, oh, Mateer throws for 300. That's a pretty good day. They moved the ball. But then you'd go see turnovers, and you'd see obviously sloppy protection, inability to run the football. It wasn't great. No, I mean,
no.
So it hasn't been great for a while, honestly.
Correct.
I mean, John Mateer has 2 300-yard passing games this year. 2.
Yeah.
And one was
against. The only
against.
reason they won that game is because of a blown coverage.
Yeah, one was the first game of the season. Eastern Illinois, somebody. Not even a MAXX school, lower tier school than that. So those are all going to be fun things to watch, all things that we're going to have to pay attention to today. We're going to move on to Roddy Jones joining us in our next segment, Greg. But if you need to move out of your home, who do you need to call?
They'll be our friends at Crocker Movement Service. They're a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys, and you can trust them in your home. Whether you need your whole home packed up and moved, your company headquarters moved across country, or you just want them to come rearrange your living room, these guys got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you've purchased and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website's CrockerMovementServices.com. That's CrockerMovementServices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Movement Service for your next move.
Bama, Oklahoma, not the only playoff game coming up this weekend. We're going to continue the discussion around all of them on a Max Ball Friday with Roddy Jones next right here on Jocks. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us today on a Max Ball Friday. If there was a player, Greg, that you looked at in this game at 7:22 a.m. Friday, December 19th, right here on Jocks, that was going to make a difference, was going to step up, not one of the normal players. And I think you already mentioned him. I'll say I think Ryan Williams is probably like the poster child for this discussion of someone who could change how we view this game if we knew going in they were going to be different. So maybe not even him, because I think we all agree that if we got first half SEC championship game Ryan Williams, that Oklahoma or Alabama is going to be different in this game. Could have been different all year. But if there's another player on either team, or maybe one from each team, who are you looking for in this game to be that player?
It's a great question. I think for Alabama, I would probably go on the defensive side, and I would go Justin Jefferson. Just because of the responsibility that he'll have in containing quarterback run. I think his speed and athleticism in a game like this can somewhat neutralize, and he's been very impactful in the games that have featured quarterback run. Think about what level of responsibility he's had to shoulder from a burden standpoint. So it's a little in the weeds, perhaps, but it'd be probably some combination of Bray Hubbard, who's tremendously instinctive and does a great job of reading eyes and getting hands on the football in a game like this might be massive. A takeaway in this game could be huge. Bray Hubbard's been the most reliable in that aspect. But I think Justin Jefferson on defense, being able to kind of follow Mateer and make sure those scrambles don't hurt him.
I think it's a good one. And I think because these teams have been very different at different points in time this year, I kind of wonder who these players could be. Like when we're talking about this game on Monday, who are some of those guys we're looking back saying, man, didn't see that coming from him, or if it wasn't for so-and-so, this game wouldn't have gone that way. I'm going to ask you about one that probably early October would have been obvious and maybe would have been a part of the first segment of the show that we just did. And for whatever reason, hasn't been much of the conversation at all, and that's Jared Kanik for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Does not have a touchdown reception, by the way, this year. Not one. But it felt like Michigan, Auburn, Temple, early in the year, it was big catch after big catch. Maybe not 16 catches a game, but big third down catches in multiple games. And now he did have 6 grabs against LSU, just 54 yards, but the nature in which he's affected games, I feel like, has really changed in this offense. And I think he's one of those guys that, if we're talking about maybe what Oklahoma did a little bit different or things we weren't expecting, a couple big plays from him could be one that a lot of folks not talking about him, but could have somewhat that type of an impact in this game.
I love that answer because I feel like Kanik is very much underutilized. I think he's one, and then defensively, I think it's probably Guillory, the freshman corner. He's played a little better as the season's gone along, and if he can play well and lock down one side and neutralize one side, that could be huge for Oklahoma.
Wouldn't surprise me at all if that's the case. And you kind of look at so many different players that have an opportunity to go and be difference makers in this game, be guys that affect the game, guys that you sort of say, well, he could be somebody who definitely changes the outcome. Ryan Williams would be that guy. And if you got first half Ryan Williams in the SEC championship game in this game, I think you'd look at it and say, yeah, that Alabama offense is going to be different. You look at a guy like Deion Burks for Oklahoma, who I thought was going to have a monster season, 50 catches, 513 yards, 3 touchdowns. It's not a bad year. He hasn't been a bad player. Did have a touchdown against LSU after having won in the first 2 games. So that's a pretty big stretch of him not finding the end zone. And he's a big play threat. He was supposed to be somebody who helps take the top off, and this Oklahoma offense just can't do it. That's why I think Kane Wommack will stay back, force everything underneath, let them try to chip away, understanding a couple of things. 1, can't run the football. 2, an offense coordinator in Ben Arbuckle that is anxious, will get a little bit greedy down the field. And then 3, a quarterback that's inconsistent. You can say whatever you want about John Mateer. He's fun to watch. He's not 100%. Arm angles. 1, John Mateer's had a lot of balls batted down this year. 2, he's had a lot of incompletions to players that were open. And it doesn't get talked about a lot. I think the injuries sort of, I'm not going to say it allows people to go easy on him, but I do think that when you look at, if you really dive into some of the routes that were open, players that were open, had space, and they're incomplete passes, there's been a lot of it that's just flat out on him. 62% on the year, and not a ton of those high level difficulty throws. A lot of those quick throws out on the perimeter, but some a little bit further down the field that easily could have been completed. Plenty more to talk about, plenty more to discuss. We got Roddy Jones coming up next. Katie Harper covers JMU at 8 a.m. Teddy Lehman, former Oklahoma great, at 8:30. Stanford Steve is at 9. Before we welcome in any of those, I'll tell you about your CBD store. Your CBD store has products to help you with your daily routine. If you need better sleep at night, they have products that can help you with that. Better focus throughout the course of the day, they have those products that can help you there at your CBD store, the largest brick and mortar CBD retailer in the world. First company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. They've got the stamp seal on those products. That's why they meet and achieve a certain set of standards and tests before they're signed off on. Arthritis, anxiety for you or your pet. If your dog has trouble getting up and down the stairs, we've had that with a couple of our dogs in our household. They have treats that can help them out. Ours got back to bouncing around almost in just a couple of days. Your CBD store, they want to help you. 3 locations, Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cajun Cleaver, and Trustful just off 459. Your CBD store, where good health hits home. Roddy Jones joins us next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. I'm live in Norman, Oklahoma, getting set for Alabama. Oklahoma will be on the radio broadcast tonight. That will air right here on Jocks, by the way, so you can tune into Jocks here and listen to Mike Cousins, Max Starks, and myself calling Alabama and Oklahoma in the first round of the college football playoff. 7:32 Friday, December 19th. We go to the Higginbotham Hotline. Roddy Jones of the ACC Network and ESPN joining us to discuss couple more college football playoff games coming up this weekend for different reasons. But let's start with this one, Roddy. I know you're not on it and haven't had these two teams very much this year, but you've watched them, you've seen them. Interested just to kind of get your perspective of this Alabama Oklahoma rematch in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, man, it's always good to chat with you. I've not seen Alabama in person. I did have Oklahoma last week of the year, so obviously one of the games that you go and you watch is the Alabama Oklahoma game because of the disparity in yardage, because of the turnovers. And I think the thing that stood out to me is that game, as much as any that Oklahoma has played late in the season, especially. That was the game that sort of epitomized the hard to kill mentality that Brent Venables talks about, because it was play after play after play in crucial situations made by that Oklahoma defense. And I think it's I try not to take the easy, lazy route of analysis all the time, but it does feel almost as simple as, hey, Alabama, if you don't turn the ball over this time around, you should have a much better shot and you should be able to win the game. But there's a couple of X factors in this that I think could help Oklahoma significantly as they take on Alabama a second time. The first is R. Mason Thomas playing on the defensive side. So the thought that, like, hey, Alabama just has to protect the passer better. Well, Oklahoma's getting their best pass rusher and their best defensive player back for this game. How much will he be able to play? I don't know. I would assume that quad is healed up. There wasn't a lot of talk that he was going to play in the game we had him against LSU. But when kind of having had those injuries, we're probably 6 weeks out from the injury happening against Tennessee. He should be able to go, and he should be able to go, especially in crucial moments for him. So even if he's not 100%, with his presence out there, I think it gives Taylor Wine a lot more one-on-ones than obviously what Oklahoma does from a pressure standpoint. Will just make it more challenging. And then secondly, John Mateer having time to heal up that thumb. Brent Venables has talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about his grip strength coming back, and there's still pain, but he doesn't have the tape on his thumb. So I think they've really downplayed how much that was affecting him. I think it was pretty obvious. You could see it, but you didn't get a lot of acknowledgement out there. But if he's feeling better, then that can change things for Oklahoma if he's throwing the ball with more consistency and more confidence. So I don't know how much weight to put in those. I still like Alabama in the game, despite Alabama not playing its best ball as we've gone down the stretch in the season.
I think the game of the weekend's tomorrow morning. And I think A&M Miami could go so many different ways for so many different reasons. There are players on those two teams that have been phenomenal and then been questionable with how they've operated on the football field. Parts of those teams that if they can get to them, there's not a lot you can do about it. If they can unleash that piece of who they are, there's not going to be a lot to counter it with. You've done a lot of ACC games this year. You've seen this Miami team. You know their makeup. Why should people have maybe more confidence than they do that Mario Cristobal and the Canes can go to College Station and get that win?
Well, first and foremost, you kind of have to ignore the Mario Cristobal part of it, because Mario in big games has shown some tendencies to not make the call that I think a lot of other coaches would, and particularly this season, be a little conservative. But this game is an awesome game to me. I've seen A&M twice in person, Miami 3 times. The thing that I think is the X factor, and I know I'm the interviewee, but I want to ask you, because the A&M defense to me is a unit that I really like and I really want to like. But man, I think level of competition, particularly at home, and the fact that they've given up a lot of points at times and rush yards gives me pause. So I'm gonna ask you before I continue on my answer. How much do you believe in that A&M defense?
I believe in it. The rush yard thing is an interesting study, and I've tried to go back and look at it. Some of it was Utah State later in the game, so I'm not that one doesn't really bother me. But there have been stretches and other times that teams have just found their way, and I don't know if it's a hey, we're going to sit back and not try to give up anything egregious until third down. It doesn't feel that
Mm,
way the majority of the time, but it feels like it's gotten to that point at certain times. It's kind of inexplicable. It's a D tackle playing a block inside. It's a linebacker running under a puller. Um, and when those things happen, 1 out of 4 times they make the play, but the other 3 times they don't. And that ends up being 5 yards, 15 yards, whatever it is. So that inconsistent portion of it does make you nervous because, as you very well know, there's a back in Mark Fletcher that can grind you out, and an offensive line that's not afraid to play that style game. And it's not that they don't. It's not that they lack girth inside. I mean, Albert Regis and those guys. I mean, they're big SEC prototypical D tackles. It's just they find themselves not in the right spots, and I don't
mhm.
get it. I don't know how and why it is really and truly, Roddy. But it's a part of this game that I look at and say, man, you could limit Marcel Reed's possessions. You could really put the pressure on that offense, which I do not think A&M needs. You could quiet that crowd to a certain extent, and all of a sudden that'd be a different game. So I think Miami has to do it. I think it'll just depend on how A&M actually plays it.
I could not agree with you more. The other thing that stands out to me is I've looked back at A&M's defense this season, and I saw them against Florida where they were unbelievable, and then I saw them against Arkansas where it was unbelievable the other way. Some of that's Taylor Green, but Mike Washington had a massive game in that one. Going back and looking, A&M's played three top 30 defenses in total three top 30 offenses this year. Two of them, Notre Dame and A&M, put up 40 points on them. The other one's Missouri, who played without Bo Privula. So and then A&M was good against them. They gave up some runs, but 17 points against Zollers. So that one's sort of a hard to evaluate. Miami is a top 30 offense, and I'm not saying that's like a magic number. It's just one that stood out to me. But I do think Miami's ability to run the ball. You mentioned Mark Fletcher. Later in the year, they've started to use a freshman running back, Gerard Pringle, who has changed the tenor of that run game because of his style. He's more willing to bounce it outside. He's more willing to press outside and then get back inside. Mark Fletcher is much more of a downhill guy. He's going to keep it between the tackles for the most part. But I think Gerard Pringle has sort of changed the explosiveness of that offense for sure. And I'm not talking about 60-yard runs, but an 8-yard run becomes a 15-yard run with Pringle because of his wiggle, because of his patience and his ability to read blocks. And that has taken some of the pressure off of this Miami defense. I agree with you. I think this is going to be a low possession game. Miami does not play fast. They are not going to play fast. A&M does not play fast. They are not going to play fast. So I do think that the possessions are going to be limited, and the team that can run the ball better is going to have the advantage. Le'Veon Moss being back for A&M is could be very big as well.
All right, let's go back to what you brought up and said that it's going to be easy for folks to go into, but you were going to kind of leave it out, and that is Mario in these games. Um, Big in-game decisions that sometimes have gone awry. How concerned are you there? Um, does that make a massive difference in this game? Does that decide this game, in your opinion?
Concerned. Yeah, I'm concerned. I am because I have seen Mike Elko both at Duke and at A&M. Um, he it may not always work out, but it feels like he makes the logical decision in those situations. I feel like Mario Cristobal a lot has made kind of head scratching decisions in those situations. And look, early in the season, I'm not saying this is completely Mario Cristobal, but early in the season, them getting up on teams like a Florida State, you go back to the Notre Dame game, and then just downshifting and allowing those teams to come back and finding themselves in ball games when they're up double digits late in the game. You can go back, in previous years to the decision not to kneel on fourth down against Georgia Tech his first season, and then clock management, not using timeouts late in halves. and then going to the locker room with 3 timeouts, even at the end of game situation, not being aggressive. In the SMU game, they had an opportunity at the end of that one to be aggressive at the end of the game, and instead they decided to take it to overtime, and obviously they lose in overtime. So there's just decisions like that concern you. So yeah, I am concerned about it, and it does feel like one of these games that is going to come down to singular decisions. And so in that case, because I've seen Mike Elko so much, and him make the right decisions, I give the edge to Mike Elko in that. I do think Miami wins the game, but if it comes down to like, hey, which coach do you trust to make the right decision in the right moment, I trust Mike Elko more.
Roddy, one thing that I think has been a little bit under discussed is how much we've seen from Shannon Dawson's offensive creativity in the last 5 or 6 games, whether it's the Malachi package where Malachi Tony's become, a huge part of not just the run game, but also the pass game as well. He's got 6 attempts this year out of that package. He's a receiver that plays quarterback. He's an amazing football player. We've seen trick plays. We've seen double passes. We've seen throwbacks. How tricky do you anticipate Miami being in this game?
Very tricky, Greg. First off, it's good to hear your voice. I was starting to think I wasn't going to hear from you.
Well, I had to get over here. I was bouncing around a couple different things on the plate today, but I can't not ask my boy a question.
No kidding, man. Dude, I am glad to hear from you. I know you got a lot going on. It's huge, and I think after that SMU game, they kind of said, "Hey, look, the cards are on the table. Like, here's what we have to do. We are 18th in the rankings. We've got to beat people, and we got to beat people by a lot." And so I don't know if it was Mario Cristobal taking the reins off of Shannon Dawson. I don't know if it was Shannon Dawson, changing what he wanted to do, but it has changed a ton. I mean, you go back to that Syracuse game, and they're in a 0-0 ball game with like under 3 minutes left in the first half, and they have the throwback to Carson Beck, who scores a first touchdown. They get an interception. They score a touchdown. They're up 14-0 at half. And then it felt like the offense collectively like took a deep breath and was like, guys, scoring points is fun. Let's do that. Let's do that more. And so they've started to use Malachi Tony in different ways. He was a high school quarterback, and not planned. Like, they needed a quarterback during the year. A quarterback got hurt, and he comes in and takes them to the state championship game at the quarterback position. They almost got better. And so he has been very good managing those situations, knowing when to throw it, knowing when not to throw it. C.J. Daniels has gotten healthy again. That's helped him a lot. I think the addition of Gerard Pringle has helped him a lot. So I think it's all of it, man. But I do feel like during this stretch where they've started to use more of those trick plays, they have felt like, man, offense is fun. Let's have fun offensively, because we've seen at least one, and I think multiple trick plays in every game since that SMU game down the stretch. And even, late in games, we've seen it time and time again. You look at the NC State game, you look at Virginia Tech, they're putting up points late. Like, they're like, hey, guys, if the offense is on the field, we're being aggressive. And that's a different temperament than this offense has shown early in the year.
Roddy, we really appreciate the time today, man. Thank you so much for hopping in, previewing some college football. Always great catching up with you. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll talk again soon.
I certainly will. I look forward to seeing you boys on the calls this weekend. So enjoy the games, man. They should be awesome.
Absolutely. Roddy Jones hopping on the Higginbotham Hotline with us on a Max Ball Friday, previewing a college football playoff weekend that begins tonight with Alabama, Oklahoma. I will give you a staggering statistics on the Alabama offense when we come back that has to change if Bama is going to find a way to win this game. Next, right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. We are live. I'm in Norman, Oklahoma, getting set for the radio call of Alabama, Oklahoma tonight. It'll air on Jocks. You'll hear it. GMAC on the call for Miami, Texas A&M. He's in College Station, getting set for that one. Going to be a good one tomorrow morning. We'll get into that game a little bit later. A couple of numbers on the Alabama offense that are just staggering right now, GMAC. This offense held under 300 total yards their last two games. First time that's happened since 2007. We know against Georgia, the lowest rushing total in the history of the program. Sacks played a part in that, but still, there are some disturbing trends with this offense that I don't think a lot of people believe that Alabama just gets over that hump or finds their way out of that trouble spot. You seem to have a little bit of confidence that they can. What gives you that confidence that they find it against a great defense?
I think Cuevas being back is big enough to add 6 points to the total. Like, I really believe that. I think his presence on the end of the line of scrimmage as a reliable safety blanket. Cuevas, it's going to be a little tricky for Oklahoma to be outrageously aggressive if they can do some of those chip protections. Because that just basically is a 6-man protection, but it becomes a 7 just with his presence on the end of the line of scrimmage. It can help you slide. It can help you do a whole lot. So that, I think, is impactful. But I also think that the offense – look, I think Ty's been banged up. Like, I don't think he's at 100%. I think he's fighting through it. I think he's going to be as close to 100% as he can be. I think a week off has been helpful. And the last time they had a week off, they went out against LSU, and it was not an elite performance. It's a good defense. But there were some nice throws made in that game. I mean, second end of the half drive, a couple really nice throws down the field. I think once you've seen the storm before, and we've talked about this already, once you've seen it once, it's just a little bit more, you can process it a little bit better the second time. So, and that doesn't, like, they played Georgia twice and it didn't go well the second time, right? But that Georgia team, I think the second time around, without two of your best players, two of your more reliable players, that's big, right? And there were some missed opportunities in that Georgia game. There were some chances, and it didn't end up working out for them. But I'm still optimistic about what Ty's been. I'm optimistic about the weapons, and I think the return of Cuevas can help an awful lot. I do think, Cole, there's been something about how they've approached the last few games. They were just playing not to lose. They were playing, the goal is to make the playoff. They're now in. And I know it's weird. I know it's a strange feeling to say this, but when you're playing not to lose, you're going to be a little hesitant. Now, who cares? Like, you got nothing to lose now. I know people say, oh, yeah, you do. Not really. Like, you really have nothing to lose. Like, you already accomplished your season-long goal of making the playoff. Now you just go let it rip. And I think there's going to be something freeing about that now that they've punched their ticket. And I think they're going to play well tonight.
It's going to be interesting to see if they can, because I go back to what you just said about protection, and I think about this. Having Cuevas is going to be massive. I feel like you and I have been on him all year. Kalen DeBoer, when I asked him about him going into the ULM game, raved about how important he was to them. Talked about how they recruited him when they were at Fresno, like when they first found out about him and started to recruit him. That's how long they have known each other and kind of been working together. And him being out made a massive difference. Here's my problem, Greg. He's not going to help them shore up the middle of the offensive line.
No.
And I don't necessarily reference this from a player perspective or players not playing well, but there was way too much between the A gaps and B gaps that had a free run at the quarterback last time around these teams played. That has to stop. And Cuevas is not going to help that stop. So they've got to shore up how they direct the protection, the assignments in protection, and maybe some of that's the overthinking that you referenced a little bit earlier. So that could potentially be problematic. I don't know exactly how it plays out where it goes, but, man, They can't allow the free runners specifically through the middle of the O-line like they did last time, and I just don't know if Cuevas actually makes that happen.
Fair. And I think the internal part of the offensive line is tricky. And remember, the last time they played Oklahoma, wasn't it Michael Carroll's first start?
Was that his first start? I have to go back and
Yes.
look at that one.
Twas. And it's not the look, I think there were some mistakes made in the first game. Sifting protections, they were fanning protections, they were blocking it outside in a couple times. I think they're going to do a much better job of solidifying the interior and forcing and look, you got to throw hot off the perimeter, by all means, rip it. But the internal A-gap pressures were kind of hurt them. It led to 7 points for them last time. O-line bust the internal, and next thing you know, they let pressure come right at the middle. Ty had less than 2 seconds to find it as opposed to 2.5, and that could have been the difference in the game. So I think they're going to have a better plan for handling it inside out in this game. They have to, because it wasn't good enough last time.
41 sacks for Oklahoma this season. That is tied with Texas A&M for the most in FBS. Protection is going to be critical for these two teams. Zero doubt about that. Oklahoma, keep in mind, has only allowed one rusher to go for over 100 yards this year, and that was Justice Haynes, Michigan running back that transferred from Alabama. And if you actually go back and look at that one, Justice Haynes had the big, it was like a 69, 68-yard run. I'm not going to say the number in between those because I'm not even going to do that.
Good.
I'm not even going there. For the parents that are late getting the kids to school, I'm not putting you through that. I'm not going to make you hear that this morning. Plenty more to come. Katie Harper covers JMU. She gives us her thoughts on that matchup with Oregon coming up this weekend next right here on Jocks.